Featuring multiple cancellations, a surprising reveal, and lots of propane and propane accessories, Hank, Peggy, and Bobby's journey to the King of the Hill finale has been long and eventful. King of the Hill holds up due in no small part to its forgiving attitude toward the peculiarities of its characters. The show makes no bones about their shortcomings, but it always gives them space to grow. Many of the characters are based on personalities from series creator Mike Judge's childhood, giving the whole show a sense of down-to-earth realism that was rare in comedies of its time. Jokes that would have quickly descended into cheap shots in most other sitcoms have a way of disarming themselves instead over the course of episodes. The series almost always leads with a message of acceptance, though it's also never afraid to poke fun at the over-the-top traits of its ensemble.
Why do you have to hate what you don't understand?
I don't hate you, Bobby.
Hank Hill's family and friends feel like people you might meet at the grocery store or at a company picnic. The relationship between Peggy and Hank is impressively committed and supportive, and any apprehension they feel about Bobby's outlandish interests and decisions is eventually outweighed by their desire to let him express himself. Despite occasional slow episodes or jokes that don't land, the cleverness of King of the Hill often lies in its refusal to pretend to be anything but what it is, while also being more complex than audiences might guess at first. After such a lengthy run, it's perhaps more surprising that King of the Hill lasted as long as it did and was only canceled in season 13. According to Mike Judge, the series was essentially canceled in 2005, only for Fox to surprise the crew by ordering more episodes. The episode originally intended to close out the series was Season 11's Lucky's Wedding Suit, which sees Lucky and Luann get married alongside a subplot involving a frivolous lawsuit. However, the show was renewed yet again, making the episode nothing more than the Season 11 finale. By the time King of the Hill was actually canceled, the show had already faced death several times. Though the abrupt end may have disappointed viewers, Judge seemed fine with it, noting to the Chicago Tribune, "I think it's a good time to stop. I'd rather stop when it's still decent, rather than run it to the ground. It'll be a little weird. This will be the first time since 1992 that I haven't had a show on the air, but I'm okay with it." Even some of the most popular sitcoms in TV history have been criticized for having less than satisfying conclusions. But the episode To Sirloin with Love grants fans a fulfilling final note by showing the sincere sense of support and community that surrounds the Hills. With Peggy spending much of the episode off doing her own thing as Hank and Bobby go through a whole emotional arc, this episode of King of the Hill evades the standard feelings of emptiness and lack of direction that many finales suffer from.
Usually your pep talks go in one ear and out the other, but this time I'm feeling the pep.
The charm of the To Sirloin with Love conclusion is that it feels just like any other episode, but it just so happens to knock it out of the park by hitting on many of the show's recurring themes. Though the early parts of the episode feature some of the best Hank and Bobby dialogue in the whole series, the concluding moments take it a bit easier by allowing the animation to do the talking. Scenes of the whole neighborhood coming out of their homes one by one to enjoy a well-cooked meal together tie together a show that, even in its roughest moments, is about the transformative power of loving your neighbors for who they are. The dynamic between a conservative father and his free-spirited son makes up much of the central focus of King of the Hill, so it might not be a huge surprise that the finale takes their relationship as its central focus. Over the course of the series, Hank and Bobby have their bond challenged in many ways, but even without outside instability pushing things to a head, there is the simple problem that the two just don't have much in common. While the show often sees them making peace with their differences, To Sirloin with Love provides a heartwarming twist by finally giving them a shared interest. When Peggy announces that she'll be off with friends for the night, Hank is concerned, noting that he and Bobby don't have all that much they can talk about without her around. However, they connect at a restaurant when Bobby correctly identifies a flaw in the steak on his plate, showing Hank that he is a top-notch purveyor of meats.
Everybody knows the tiny bone side of the sirloin is the most tender. What kind of steak joint is this?
A man at a nearby table agrees, introducing himself as the coach of the Heimlich County Junior College Meat Examination Team, which he asks Bobby to join. When Bobby asks for his dad's approval, Hank is so overwhelmed with joy that he immediately agrees. Just like that, Bobby's on the team, and Hank has never been happier. Keeping in step with the core format of King of the Hill, Bobby soon experiences doubts about the team his father is so overjoyed to see him become a part of. Though Bobby immediately proves himself a skilled grader by noticing a detail in a cow carcass that his teammates don't immediately see, he clocks them as being a little weird right off the bat. When they go out the night before they're meant to compete, they tell Bobby he can't jinx them by eating meat before the event. After that, they throw red pepper flakes in the faces of their competitors, shocking Bobby. However, his coach encourages this behavior, making Bobby question his future with the group.
Did you know that no one can hear you scream from inside a meat locker?
When Bobby makes a simple mistake and the others deride and ostracize him, he tells Hank he has to quit the team. This causes Hank to have somewhat of an overreaction, as he was so excited to finally bond with his son. This isn't so much about the competition as it is about their relationship, a point that's driven home when Bobby sees the grill his dad has bought for him in celebration. Peggy tells him in no uncertain terms that Hank's disappointment comes from the happiness he felt when he realized that he could finally share an important part of his life with Bobby. Even though Hank's feelings of sadness around Bobby's desire to quit the meat examination team are justified, Bobby has every right to leave the strange group. The shady tactics they resort to in order to claim a win are only the tip of the iceberg. Interactions with the others show Bobby that there's something deeply weird about every one of the people on the team. The focus on competition over enjoyment unsettles him and plays a major role in his decision to step away. It's clear that Bobby not only has a good sense of ethics, but also a healthy ability to keep his ego in check. Hank's pride in Bobby is adorable, and his stubbornness eventually wanes as he realizes just how right Bobby was about the team. Finally understanding his son's desire to quit, Hank learns a classic King of the Hill lesson. But to sirloin with love makes it easier on him than usual. He quickly realizes the error of his ways and seeks to rectify his mistakes. Although To Sirloin with Love is technically not the final episode of King of the Hill, more on that later, it's hard to imagine a more fitting end to the series. The story ends with Hank and Bobby sharing a delightful moment as they feed the neighborhood together. Even though the two don't always see eye to eye, their shared love of grilling can always bring them back together.
Oh, you're just getting started, Bobby. You'll be grilling your whole life.
Just like you.
Yep.
Yep.
Despite Hank's consistent, series-defining declaration,
That boy ain't right.
Bobby is arguably the most right person in King of the Hill, and he proves it in the finale. Not only does he show surprising maturity in pleading his case with the waitstaff when he realizes his steak isn't what it should be, but he's also a great team member who's capable of working with the goals of a larger group in mind. Bobby's calm and friendly demeanor doesn't seem as special as it is until we see it contrasted with people who have such a long way to go in their own development. If Bobby's arc had to come to a close, this was the time and place for it to happen. Though he was always capable of being profound beyond his years, here he's able to forgive and connect with his dad even when Hank is being a bit immature. Besides that, he puts aside his own feelings of resentment toward the team that treated him badly, stepping in where he's needed so that they're able to succeed in the competition, even though he no longer wants anything to do with it. Juggling his father's expectations, the need for personal boundaries, and his own self-interest successfully is the kind of thing that has us taking notes on how to be more like Bobby Hill. A consistent truth in King of the Hill is that you should keep things honest no matter how much you want to win. That message comes back in a big way in To Sirloin with Love. Bobby notices the shady dynamics of the meat examination team early on, and he finds himself completely unwilling to engage in their over-the-top attempts to hurt their competitors. Though we know by now that Bobby is a good kid who will follow his own ethics above any group dynamics, his intuition has been honed into something truly impressive by the series' conclusion. This episode is far from the only competition gone wrong to appear on King of the Hill, but it is one of the most revealing for its characters. The added stress on Bobby to do well with the team so his father will continue to be proud of him is extreme. But even despite Hank's disappointment, there's no question that he truly loves his son. Earlier in the episode, when Bobby gets upset with himself for only getting fourth place, Hank is overjoyed. celebrating his fourth-place slot with a level of enthusiasm that can't help but be endearing. The knowledge that Hank doesn't care whether Bobby succeeds, only that they have a common interest, only pushes forward the enduring message of fair play that pops up so often throughout the series. Among Hank Hill's beer-drinking buddies, Boomhauer is always the most mysterious one, with his slurred, rapid-fire way of talking making it nearly impossible to understand him.
And it's dang old complicated, you know, man. It's like a dang old Rubik's Cube, man. You like talking about it, blue, red, man, then you get to one side and then you like messed up the other side, man.
Initially being pretty one-dimensional, Boomhauer is often defined by his interest in women and muscle cars, though his luck with both is regularly called into question when the series starts unpacking the details of his life. Regardless, Boomhauer is highly astute and capable of giving calm and reasonable advice to others, making him a helpful guy to have around. By the end of the series, Boomhauer gets a few spotlight episodes and even some fairly profound moments with characters like Bobby and Hank. After spending the whole series without ever actually stating what his job is, the last episodes tell us that Hank's bestie Boomhauer was actually a Texas Ranger the whole time. The revelation occurs in a casual scene in which Boomhauer smells the grill outdoors and leaves his home to join in. His wallet pops open, revealing a badge and solving one of the show's big mysteries in a perfectly low-key way. Does this mean that Boomhauer was casually spying on anti-government conspiracy theorist Dale throughout their friendship? We may never know. To Sirloin with Love acts as the finale to King of the Hill, but it wasn't the last episode to actually air. 4 more episodes that had already been produced premiered in syndication after the fact. The Honeymooners, Bill Gathers Moss, When Joseph Met Lori and Made Out with Her in the Janitor's Closet, and Just Another Manic Conde. These are more like ordinary episodes than series finales, but that doesn't mean they aren't still fun to watch. Hank's mother announces her intention to marry a man Hank hasn't even met. Bill decides to combat his depression by getting some roommates, and Joseph's love life picks up steam. In Just Another Manic Conde, the last episode to air chronologically, the often combative relationship between Hank and his neighbor Con gains a new dimension as the two spend some one-on-one time with each other. With Min and Connie on a trip, Hank is tasked with checking in on his neighbor. Deciding that medication is unnecessary, Hank tells Con to not bother waiting in line at the pharmacy.
Yeah, you're right. I think I'll self-medicate with 50,000 BTUs of ass-kicking hellfire.
This sends Con into a manic episode in which he becomes uncharacteristically upbeat and wants to work endlessly on a shared grill project with Hank. However, Hank soon realizes he misunderstood the extent of Con's bipolar disorder when his neighbor hits a low point and is unable to complete the project. Though Hank doesn't always behave in the best way, he and Con ultimately end up becoming closer due to their newfound understanding. To all good things, there must be an end. Even though King of the Hill has an excellent conclusion, it can still feel bittersweet to fans who wanted another 13 seasons. If that's you, you may be in luck, as there have been recent rumors of a revival series coming from original co-creators Mike Judge and Greg Daniels. Though very little information has been released to date around what we could expect from a return to Arlen, chances are it would involve quite a lot of talk of propane and propane accessories, and we wouldn't want it any other way. In January of 2022, Daniels told Collider that his and Judge's idea for a revival would start with a time jump, aging the show's characters significantly. However, it's still unclear whether or not the revival will actually happen. In September of 2022, it was announced that Fox was uninterested in bringing the series back, leaving Judge and Daniels without a definite home for the reboot. King of the Hill could still be coming back, however, and Judge and Daniels seem excited to bring it to life. Spending years with the Hills was a formative experience for a lot of sitcom fans. So here's hoping the new series will be every bit the low-key slice of life we've come to know and love.